Dun it, dun it, dun 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 it. Weebs.
So I think going on to this, I'm going to use Warcolor's Pink 5 as maybe like my base color here. I'll probably do a lighter base color on like the membrane of the wings, but I think this is the base color I'm going to do. So my name's Maddie, and I am going to paint a purple dragon. So these things come pre-primed. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You know, this guy's gonna come in a real dark pink at first, but once I put down the next layer, I think it's gonna look pretty cool. I'm gonna go over it with a purple contrast paint from Citadel. That'll really darken it a fair bit, but I'm hoping that we get to keep a little bit of this pink undertone with that purple contrast to help give it a bit more, I guess, warmth, make the purple look a bit more organic. Who knows if it's gonna work? I've never painted a purple dragon before. I have painted a lot of purple armies though. My Tyranids are purple, I have a lot of purple Zine Steam. And my Custodies are purple. So, fun story about this purple dragon. It lived in a cave, and it was very dark in said cave. So we entered it, and my character at the time was a wizard, an abjuration specialist in particular. He was so arrogant that he wouldn't be caught, like, unaware, that he cast spider climb, I think, on himself, and he climbed to the top of this cave, and coincidentally, that's where the dragon was, but his dark vision wasn't as far as the dragon's breath weapon was. So the dragon had this special breath weapon, which was like a gas that was flesh to stone, and this abjuration wizard had the craziest saves out there and was super buffed up and prepared to deal with a dragon in particular. But I think he got like a nat 1 on his save, and he failed his fort save and was petrified. He was turned into a statue and then fell like 200 feet into a little underground lake in this massive cave system. It was pretty cool. Purple dragon, because it was a thing our DM did at the time. My character was a wizard. He was a bit of an evil guy, but, you know, not always. But anyway, he wanted fame or infamy, and he thought his path to that would be best realized by becoming renowned as a dragon slayer and maintaining a trophy of like every dragon color that he had killed. And he had heard about this rare mythical purple dragon, which, you know, isn't quite in the normal chromatic color scheme. So when he had heard about it, this one-of-a-kind dragon, he had to go and find it and try to kill it. It was an interesting campaign as well, because it was actually my campaign. I was the DM, but every now and again we'd like cycle me out for a month or two, and one of the other players would take up as DM for just a little bit. Really fun. Edgar later became an antagonist to the party, and then eventually, towards the end of the campaign, a willing ally. It was some real interesting character growth. I really had fun playing that evil wizard. It's kind of tricky too, because you got to get it in all these scales. You can't just paint from one steady direction. You got to still work it from a few angles. Well, I go through waves of motivation. Painting motivation can be really fickle sometimes. I can be all into it, pumped and ready to paint stuff for like the whole week, and then something can set it off and just be hard to get back into it. What really helps is just trying to do 5 minutes of something. Even if you know you're not going to finish it, do 5 minutes of something, just try it out. See if it looks good, see if you get something accomplished. I feel like having a wet palette helps a lot with that as well. If you can kind of just, put some paint down and then box it up when you need to move on and still have that paint fresh to come back to later. So he's gonna look a little patchy and a bit pink right now, but this is like this little base layer I'm putting down before I put some nice purple contrast in. So I'm going for like a real dark pink on the scales, then I'm gonna do like a really light pink on the wings, and then like bluish, a pale blue I think on the fringe, and then it's gonna get soaked in with some purple contrast, which will give it a more purpley color, but hopefully with some undertones and stuff. We'll see if it works. I have no idea. This is just theory. Also, Phoenix, just so you know, there's going to be a little statue of Edgar at the bottom of this. Sorry, I recently upgraded my PC, and we're setting up some of the audio stuff for the first time. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the purple so far. It's a bit pink-ish, but yeah, you'll see once we get the next colors down, it'll start coming out way more purple. And Skills are real particular about how they want to get painted. Really got to get all up in those grooves and stuff. Change it back to my smaller brush, because we're not working with large bodies of Skills right now. So I think my plan here is once I get a nice even purple down on these scales, I'm going to go with, I think, Army Painter Void Shield Blue on that little ridge that's running down his neck and his spine. And then I'm probably going to go with maybe either Mutant Hue from Army Painter or Pixie Pink from Army Painter for the wing membranes. Probably Mutant Hue, I think. That one's kind of like a grayish pale purple. Once all three of those colors are down, that's the point that I'm going to go over it with some purple contrast. And the reason for all this effort, I know it's once the contrast goes down, it's going to make it a lot darker and it's going to mute out some of the color differences that we're seeing, but at least it'll create kind of an underlying color change between, you know, the base scales, the wing membrane, that ridge. Hopefully it'll help make them a bit easier to distinguish from each other as like having a slightly different color or hue to them. Oh, yeah, and just in case the listeners were confused earlier with the whole story about how he turned into a statue but then later was part of the party, he got stone to fleshed back. He got better. Tell a dragon story? Okay, so like a Gruk dragon story or a Calcrix dragon story? Tell the Edgar dragon story? So, yeah, Edgar was this wizard NPC that I played, and I explained to the stream a little bit earlier how he was an evil wizard, and he didn't even get started into the wizarding business until he was like in his 50s, so he felt like he had a lot to catch up on and a lot to prove for, basically already being an elderly person and just starting his adventuring in his old age. So he wanted to rise to fame quickly, and he thought his path to doing so would be to become a reputable dragon slayer, and he wanted to kill one of every dragon color. Didn't matter if you were chromatic or metallic, he just wanted that kind of name for himself. And he heard a story one day about this majestic and unique purple dragon that was spotted in this area, and using all sorts of like druid magic, wizard magic, like there was scrying, there was talk to plants, there like all kinds of divinations and stuff were going on to track this dragon's lair down. And we tracked this dragon's lair down, and it was something that our, I think, level like 12 party was pretty well prepared for at the time. We knew what we were getting into. We had a pretty competent team, and we kind of knew how to play our characters, and I'm not going to say we were power gamers, but we weren't not power gamers at the time. And we got into this dragon lair, and Edgar cast Spider Climb on himself, and he thought he'd get the drop on this dragon. He was all prepared to like blast off some disintegrates and just generally do cool badass wizard stuff. He was buffed to the nines and prepared for a fight, and he sneaks up and onto the top of this like cavern system that's supposed to host this dragon, and his dark vision was shorter than the range of the dragon's breath weapon, which just so happened to be a flesh to stone breath weapon, a little gaseous vapor that turned Edgar on his, like, I think it was like a nat 1 or something comparable. This wizard had the most ridiculously good saves. He was an abjuration specialist, but he failed, and he turned into a statue and plummeted into this underground water system. He got better, but, you know, it was pretty dramatic. In the meantime, the party killed the dragon, and actually that caused a rift between the party, because Edgar felt like they slayed the dragon, you know, behind his back without him. So, and that was the moment where I was taking the DM reins back. So, like, that was the excuse for Edgar to leave the party, was that he had wanted to slay this dragon himself, and he felt like he had it stolen. And not that he did. I mean, the party was right. You see a purple dragon, you kill that thing. But hey, an evil wizard's going to be an evil wizard. So the next time the party saw Edgar was Edgar and the party had all ended up trapped together in this interplanar prison, and they were trying to escape together, but Edgar was still pretty sore about it, and the party, being full of player characters, didn't feel like they should apologize to him. He was the one slighted, by the way, and not that they had done anything wrong. So he was an antagonist while they were exploring this dungeon. The whole time he was there with like greater invisibility and fly, just kind of sneaking around and watching them and messing with puzzles before they got the chance to get to them, or, you know, setting up other things just to kind of mess with them. And at one point, and I was giving the party perception checks as well, but he was an abjuration wizard designed to be a universalist and had a huge repertoire of spells to draw from. He basically set himself up to be pretty much undetectable, but at one point one of them finally passed a perception check and heard him giggling as they were walking up to a book that he had placed there that had exploding runes placed on it. So they heard giggling, and he immediately bolted once one of the party members like indicated that they knew he was there. Meanwhile, the other party member like read the book and had an explosion go off in their face. It's kind of fun to play an antagonistic character who wanted to mess with the party but not actually kill them. Usually as a DM, your antagonists have the motivation of wanting to kill somebody that gets in their way, whereas with him, that was a good like 2 sessions, I think, that he was basically playing an antagonist for them, and he was honestly just trying to troll them for the most part. It was really interesting. A lot of intrapersonal role play with it too, because he had been a part of the party for so long. We're going to be doing some contrast paints over it. I think I want to do that pale blue, that void shield blue on the ridge now. So Army Painter, since I'm going to kind of put that purple contrast pretty much over the entire model, I want to put some kind of varying colors in there. So I don't want it to be all the same color of purple, because even your own skin color and your own skin tone, you know, changes kind of depending on the part of your body. Hue on your palm of your hands is different from the, you know, the back of your neck and stuff. Contrasts are intended to go on pale colors anyway, and I don't mind them going onto a pretty dark color for the scales initially, because the scales are so small that when I go back over and start dry brushing it, they're going to pick up a lot of highlights because they're so finely detailed. All those little raised edges will pick up whatever color I'm dry brushing them with, so they'll get pretty vivid again if I need them to. Some of these bigger parts like fringe and the membranes on the wings, those won't pick up quite as much much of that dry brushing highlight color, so I'd like those to be a little bit of a lighter color getting started. So I want this thing to be fairly vibrant, not like super colorful, but it should be a dragon, you know? It shouldn't be dull and boring. So, sorry, I don't want to paint this out of camera, but I'm painting it kind of upside down a little bit because the paint that I've got here is pretty thinned out, and I don't want it to really like run back onto the scales too much, so upside down so the gravity kind of keeps the water in the direction I want while it's drying. So this is gonna look weird. Next paint is going to be Mutant Hue by Army Painter. So this is like a pale grayish looking purple. The white is super bright, but once it's painted, it looks good. So with this membrane, I don't want to do two thin coats like normal. I'm only really doing the one coat here. I've done this before with other wings where you see they have those side-to-side membranes a little bit. If you do kind of a thinner coat of whatever color you want to do those wing membranes on over a gray like this, and just kind of like do the painting a bit side to side, you can kind of incorporate natural areas of like shade and discoloration, which would be pretty common in those kinds of membranes. Get the edges a little bit crisp around, and then just kind of back and forth in between. So if you do get a little bit of streaking and have some of the gray show underneath, that at least it's like it's in the direction of the wing membrane and actually helps complete the look rather than looking bad. I think another pretty good thing to motivate you to paint, and this also kind of works for me sometimes, is if I find that my lack of motivation is because I'm not really pleased with how some of my models are coming out, then I'll just take a break from painting that particular model for a while, and I'll go around online and I'll look up other color schemes people are doing, maybe painting techniques, and try to see if I can find something to help me figure out what I'm missing. If that ends up being something that looks good and that I'm happy with, then I'm probably going to get more motivation to paint because now I'm going to be more excited about my color scheme. My number one tip for new painters is look up resources. There are so many people online painting stuff, talking about how to paint stuff, theorizing how to paint stuff, recording themselves painting stuff. Everything I know is because I've either learned it or sat down and practiced and done some weird stuff. But all my good techniques are ones that I've actually learned from watching other people do them on YouTube or on Twitch, or maybe post some article about it. Yeah, really not impressed with this priming, actually. They make a big deal about it being pre-primed so you can just throw paint straight on it, but honestly, this primer feels harder to paint to than if it was just bare plastic. Just kind of settling inconsistently and sometimes peeling even just completely off. This paint just curls back before it dries and then leaves a big gray area that used to have paint on it. It's weird. I've never seen a primer just completely repel paint before. Yeah, it's some weird kind of rubbery plastic. I don't really quite know what to make of it, if I'm honest. It's like, it's flexible and it's somewhat rigid, but it's fairly flexible, but it goes back to its original shape all the time. So like, you gotta constantly be applying pressure to keep the wings bent, but the wings definitely do bend. I don't know if it's meant to be posable or not. So go back over and catch some of those holes that appeared in the paint through the primer. Tons of them. This is a really annoying primer on this stuff, but I got at least a base coat down on every part of this model, so I don't think that's a problem I'm gonna have to be worried about anymore, as long as I can patch these little holes that have appeared everywhere. home stretch. This is the last little bit of blue, and then I'm gonna wrap this up for the night. And when we get back onto this one next week, there's gonna be a whole buttload of purple contrasts, inks, and washes going on this all over the place. I don't know what name his dragon had in the game, but we're gonna make sure it looks pretty cool when it's finished. This is the initial base coat, though. Alright, thank you very much. Have a great night. See you next week.
Hey everyone, this is Platonic D, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching our video. We do this to show everyone that your hobbies don't have to be on a professional level for you to enjoy them or share them. We strive to bring positivity to our hobbies and help everyone be more comfortable with just playing and falling into what you enjoy most. Like, comment, and subscribe and all that other jazz on our social media outlets that you can find down below in the description. Hope you join us again next time. And a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. You guys help us out in a major way and we cannot thank you enough. Thanks.
Weeps!
What is wrong with this guy?